Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, your space for Black news, Black views, and Black opinions. Today is Wednesday, March 9th. I'm Seth Lemon.
And I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo. And on today's report, Congress avoids a government shutdown by passing a bipartisan bill. What the new funding measure includes. Meanwhile, Vice President Harris visits Poland today as the Russia-Ukraine war continues. How she plans to reassure NATO allies of the U.S. commitment to their security. Then, President Biden is expected to sign off on a new rule for cryptocurrency. So, what's changing?
Plus, Black Panther director Ryan Coogler gets caught in a case of mistaken identity, how the Oscar nominee ended up in handcuffs, and Time magazine releases its Women of the Year list during this Women's History Month. A look at the Black changemakers topping the list. It's West Coast Wednesday, it's Humps Day, it's all of that. It's our voice and our truth, so let's get it.
Welcome in this Wednesday. Congress has reached a bipartisan deal to fund the government. The funding is part of a $1.5 trillion measure that finances federal agencies for the rest of this year. Lawmakers, they faced a Friday deadline to approve the government-wide spending measure, or the government was going to shut down over the weekend. The overall bill, it was stocked with victories for both parties. For Democrats, it gives them $730 billion for domestic programs they wanted, the biggest boost in the last 4 years. Republicans also got a $782 billion win for defense, a 5.6% increase over last year's budget. It seems that they have finally reached a point where they could come up with a deal because they've been passing these stopgap measures for now, trying to get past a few weeks at a time since they've been at odds. But they found money for the things that they wanted.
Yeah, we've been saying that about a lot of things, that they can find money to fund what they want to fund. And so this actually was a win for both parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. But what was interesting is the Republicans, they've been pretty much saying that Biden hasn't been present enough, Biden hasn't been moving fastly enough. But Biden kind of bounced back on that and was like, hey, I wanted to make sure all the allies were in place, more specifically the European allies. And you'll remember Zelensky, he actually did a big plea to get Europe on board and make sure that Europe was on board. They were asking for Russian aircrafts to join in Ukraine. So Biden has been very instrumental, doing a lot of behind the scenes work. So happy that this deal was completed and it was a good win for both parties.
Yeah, and it's a win-win for both sides. Some would say Republicans really won with this bill, if you look at the numbers, but they came together at a time where they really need to. So maybe this could be the start of something special for the Democrats and Republican Party as far as coming together and agreeing on things. Hopefully this carries over to some of the other bills as well.
Exactly, Romeo. We would love to see that. So
yes.
Just, not making it such a big deal to get things passed all the way through. Now to the latest in Ukraine. The Russia invasion of Ukraine is under a 12-hour ceasefire. As intel agencies say, up to 4,000 Russian soldiers have died. Another 450 women and children have also been killed. Dying soldiers and a cratering economy are making the cost of Russia's invasion higher than what President Vladimir Putin expected. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to evacuate civilians from 6 cities. Buses are transporting thousands of people to the Poland border. The country's deputy prime minister calls the destruction apocalyptic. U.S. intelligence says that Ukrainian forces have slowed the Russian invasion, making it harder for Moscow to capture major cities. But they say Putin will most likely increase the bombardment of the cities it failed to capture in the coming days.
Vice President Kamala Harris is in Poland today. This is a video of the vice president departing from Joint Base Andrews early this morning. She'll be visiting both Poland and Romania to reassure the NATO allies of the U.S.'s commitment for their security. The vice president's visit to Poland became more complicated after the Pentagon rejected an offer by Poland to provide fighter jets to Ukraine, with the U.S. as an intermediary. Harris will also deliver a 3-part message assuring that the U.S. stands with its NATO allies while also continuing to support Ukraine and condemn Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Congressional Black Caucus members are calling for the federal government to spend more money on African American media. Representative Hank Johnson recently sent a letter to the White House pointing out that of the $5 billion spent on advertising by the federal government, only $51 million went to black-owned media. The GAO, Government Accountability Office, a report from them documented ad spending by the government going all the way back to 2016. Johnson says the spending is needed for trusted news sources that could help the government get COVID and other health-related information to underserved communities. This reminded me of the lawsuit against McDonald's that Byron Allen had filed, suing them for how much they spent on advertising and how little the percentage was that they actually considered or doled out to black-owned media groups. And now it seems that this isn't just a problem at the corporate level in private corporations, but also inside the federal government.
Yeah. You know, this doesn't seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but for the black community, we had a very hard time trying to get people on board with getting the vaccine and understanding what was real and what was fake news about COVID-19 and the vaccine. And so if more money was put into black media, we wouldn't have had that problem, because our trusted sources, the sources that we trust for our news, would have been those places providing that accurate information. But this also reminds me of HBCUs. So what's going to come from this is that a lot more money is going to go to black media, but the white people get their pennies in a bunch when they see black people, HBCUs, and organizations getting money. But hey, this is why we have to go to President Biden. This is why we have to keep our foot on their neck and keep stressing it, because we get the short end of the stick. So I don't want to hear any of the white people upset when they see us getting the money that we should have deserved a long time ago.
All our life, we've got to fight. At the end of the day, you think about it, right? $5 billion in advertisement, only $51 million toward black advertising. That's like 1.02%. That's just very disturbing, right? So if you think about that number and how they need to invest in that, because so let's just go back to COVID. And like you said, Demi, we had a lot of people of color that lost their lives due to COVID, right? That wasn't sold on COVID, on getting the shot or getting the booster shot. We could have used that advertising to really push that and sell that. We had other people trying to do it, but it wasn't enough, and a lot of lives were just totally lost. So the number has to go up when it comes to advertising. It's only right.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and President Biden's senior advisor, Cedric Richmond, they met with the members of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated on Tuesday. The meetings are part of the sorority's 33rd annual Delta Days. You can see some of the members right there. The group annually meets with lawmakers to press issues relevant to African-American communities. This year, the Deltas are taking and talking about the issue of health care, voting rights, and financial inequities. Social action and service are two of the founding principles of America's second oldest black sorority.
The Biden administration is getting ready to shell out $2.7 billion in fundings to HBCUs. The money comes from the president's American Rescue Plan. The infusion of cash is one of the largest ever to HBCUs. It's part of the Biden-Harris campaign pledge of equity for all Americans. Half of the funds are required to be spent on financial relief for students.
President Biden is expected to sign an executive order for federal agencies to investigate and develop policies around cryptocurrency. This order, it's going to direct the Department of Justice to look into whether a new law is needed to create a new currency. The order also comes as large Bitcoin thefts have roiled the cryptocurrency markets. Mr. Biden, he worries that Russia's use of crypto in an effort to avoid their economic sanctions is being funded by those currencies and escaping those sanctions imposed by both Europe and the West.
There are new images of WNBA star Brittany Griner. Russian state TV released a new image you can see on your screen there of the basketball player yesterday. Now, it's the first new image of her since she was first arrested last month at a Russian airport. It's unclear when the photo was taken. Griner was arrested last month after Russian police say they allegedly found a vape cartridge with hash oil in her bags.
Enrique Tarrio, the former leader of the Proud Boys, is in jail right now. He was indicted Tuesday on conspiracy charges related to the January 6 attacks. Tarrio was arrested Tuesday in Miami on a charge of conspiring to obstruct an official proceeding. That's a felony charge that could carry a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison. Tarrio wasn't at the Capitol the day of the attack because he had been arrested 2 days before for burning a stolen Black Lives Matter flag from a D.C. church the month before. He was told by police to leave the city. Prosecutors say Tarrio helped organize and rally the Proud Boys in Baltimore by phone. He organized travel for the Proud Boys to Washington with the intent to obstruct the certification of the Electoral College votes by Congress.
The Justice Department has its first conviction related to the January 6th insurrection. A federal grand jury yesterday quickly convicting Guy Reffitt on 5 counts, including obstruction of Congress's certification of the 2020 election. He was also convicted of wearing an illegal gun on his hip during the attack on the Capitol building. Reffitt, he threatened to kill his son and his daughter if they told on him, and they testified in court against him. Reffitt faces up to 20 years in prison now on the obstruction charge.
Connecticut lawmakers are working on a new state law in response to the death of 2 African-American women. The legislation would require police at a death scene be required to call the next of kin within 24 hours if the victim is identified. The bill stems from the deaths of Lauren Smith Fields and Brenda Lee Rawls, 2 black women found dead after dates with men they just met. Both families say they did not find out until a few days after police found their loved ones' bodies. State Representative Steve Staffstrom, he says that he wrote the bill after meeting with the Smith Fields family.
The so-called Don't Say Gay bill is one step closer to being law. The bill's official name, the Parental Rights Education Bill, passed Florida Senate yesterday. The legislation would limit what teachers discuss about sexual orientation and gender identity in public schools. Opponents of the bill dubbed the law Don't Say Gay bill. Governor Ron DeSantis says he will sign the bill into law when it reaches his desk. It could go into effect July 1st.
A white Republican who ran for city council in Houston is being punished for lying about being endorsed by a group of black Democrats. Eric Dick, he's been fined $30,000 by the Texas Ethics Commission. The Houston Chronicle newspaper says Eric was running for office in 2019 when he sent out a mailer by a group called the Harris County Black Democratic News. The flyer, it used photos of former President Obama and members of the Congressional Black Caucus, as well as local black leaders. Now, Dick, he claimed he had nothing to do with the mailer, but an investigation proved otherwise. Doesn't really matter because it didn't work. Dick lost the race anyway.
A jury has been seated in the trial of the 4 men accused of plotting to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Prosecutors say the men created a scheme involving drills in the woods, a trip to check out the governor's vacation home, and a plot to blow up a bridge. They were allegedly upset over her pandemic policies. 2 other men have already pleaded guilty and will be likely to be witnesses for the prosecution. If convicted, the men could face life behind bars.
Black students at an Arkansas high school are angry. Last week, they held a sit-in in a protest after a black student was suspended for school the same amount of time as the white kid who picked the fight. The fight was posted on social media, and it sparked discussions of systemic racial bias. The video shows a black teen, as you see here, in a locker room being called vulgar names by the white team. A fight begins after the black teen was pushed by the aggressor. The black student was left unconscious after being put in a chokehold. Both students were suspended for 10 days. Growing up, my grandmother had this saying, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Because there's no way this should end up like that. Especially now that you have proof, you see that, you see the video, you know who was the aggressor, who started this situation, and how this man was unconscious, his child was. And yet he gets sentenced the same day, 10 days? It doesn't add up. And then how does it make you feel as a student coming back saying, well, how am I going to be treated moving forward? And where's the fairness in all this? That's the big question, right?
Of course, if I was the family of this kid, if I was this child, thank God he's alive because, this is just graphic video. And, Romeo, you're right. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, because this reminds me of the other video where there were 2 kids that were, I forgot what was happening.
They were fighting at the mall?
Fighting in the mall.
Yeah.
And the black student was the one. So why do police feel like, and those who are in charge feel like black people are always the aggressors here? And so I would be very upset if I were the friends, the family, and I am so happy that their friends in the school stayed this lock-in, and it's a shame they have to do it, but I'm happy that they did this because it's just really not fair.
Yeah, shame they have to do it. The video is disturbing to say the least.
Absolutely.
It really is. And look, if you have the students, that's right, doing this sit-in, why not the teachers or the parents not understanding what they see? They saw what happened, they know the truth, and that's what they're fighting for, the students saying, no, this is not right. I think it should never got to that point. Teachers should have stood up to that. That was my son. I wouldn't have left the school until they changed it. It'd have been a real big problem. Yeah.